It started with a sound. The soft click of my husband's phone being placed face down on the nightstand. It was a new sound in our 5-year marriage, and it was louder than a gunshot. Caleb had always been an open book, or so I thought. But lately, the book had been slammed shut, locked, and hidden away. He said it was work stress, the pressure of his real estate deals, but my gut and instinct, honed by years of analyzing threats far more dangerous than a suburban affair, told me a different story. And I was about to find out that the woman he was cheating on me with wanted more than just my husband. She wanted my life. The little things are what break you first. It wasn't a lipstick stain or a late-night confession. It was silence where there used to be conversation. It was Caleb, my husband, laughing at his phone and quickly turning it off when I walked into the room. Just a meme from a client, he'd say, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He started having early morning client calls, but the car never left the driveway. I knew. I just didn't want to know. I had built this life in a quiet corner of Portland, a life of peace after leaving my old job, a job analyzing security threats for the government. All I wanted was normal. The moment the floor fell out from under me was on a Tuesday. I was paying our credit card bill online when I saw it. A charge for $450 at the Gilded Lily, a ridiculously expensive floral boutique downtown. The delivery address wasn't ours. I froze. My hands started shaking. I searched the address. It belonged to Jessica Finch. An aggressive corporate lawyer Caleb had mentioned was helping him close a big commercial deal. My heart hammered against my ribs. Flowers? Why was my husband sending another woman $450 worth of flowers? I didn't confront him. Not yet. Confrontation is for people who want to fight. I wanted the truth. That night, while he was in the shower, I picked up his phone. My hands felt steady now. Cold. The passcode was his birthday. Pathetic. I went straight to his texts with Jessica. There they were. Pictures of the flowers. They're beautiful, Cal. You shouldn't have. His reply made my blood run cold. Anything for my star lawyer. You're going to crush this. She won't know what hit her. I scrolled up. And there it was. A thread of messages plotting my downfall. They were talking about the divorce. About how to position me as unstable. About taking my cybersecurity firm, the one I built from nothing. This wasn't just an affair. It was a hostile takeover. I never imagined my life would become one of those awful family betrayal stories you read about online. I closed the phone, placed it back on the nightstand, and felt nothing but ice in my veins. The game had just begun. The grief came and went in a single, silent wave. What replaced it was a chilling clarity. I wasn't a heartbroken wife anymore. I was an analyst with a mission. Caleb and Jessica saw me as Maya Evans, the quiet, unassuming owner of a small tech company. They had no idea who I used to be. They didn't know that my small tech company was built on skills I'd learned at the NSA, that I could peel back a person's digital life like an onion, layer by painful layer. This was more than just cheating. This was a calculated attack, a story of family betrayal that felt like a knife in the back. My home, once a sanctuary, became my command center. I started with the basics. While Caleb slept, I installed a keystroke logger on his laptop. It was child's play. Then, I accessed our home Wi-Fi router's admin panel. He'd never changed the default password, a rookie mistake, and set up packet sniffing. Every piece of data he sent or received, encrypted or not, was now being mirrored to a secure server I controlled. It felt wrong. It felt like a violation. But they had violated me first. They had declared war. I was just choosing the battlefield. The information started pouring in. Emails between Caleb and Jessica. Financial statements I'd never seen. And then, I found their strategy document, a PDF file buried in a folder named Vacation Ideas. It was a detailed plan to dismantle my life. They had hired a psychologist who I'd never met to create a fake evaluation painting me as paranoid and emotionally erratic. They had a list of my company's clients, planning to poach them by claiming my instability was a business risk. Jessica's legal notes were the worst. Leverage her past. Hint at a non-disclosure agreement from a previous government job. Make her look secretive, dangerous. The judge will eat it up. They weren't just trying to take my money. They wanted to erase me. This was one of those true stories that's stranger than fiction, and I was living it. I read every word, my anger turning into a cold, hard resolve. This wasn't just a breakup. This was going to be one of the best revenge stories anyone had ever heard. For 5 years, I had a ghost in my phone. A single contact under the name M. Sullivan, with a number I never called. It was my emergency exit, my link back to a world I'd fought so hard to leave behind. Now, it was my only option. I drove to a noisy coffee shop 2 towns over, used a burner phone, and dialed. He answered on the first ring. "It's been a while, Evans." His voice was exactly as I remembered, like gravel and whiskey. Marcus Sully Sullivan, my former FBI handler, the man who taught me that the best defense is a devastating offense. "I need help, Sully," I said, my voice low. "It's personal." I gave him the short version. The husband, the lawyer, the plan to gut my life and my company. I expected a lecture. I expected him to tell me to walk away. Instead, I heard a low chuckle on the other end. "So, the sleeping dog finally got kicked," he said. "Took you long enough to show your teeth. What do you need?" This wasn't just a mission. It was a matter of survival, a test of overcoming adversity. "I need the old toolkit," I said. "A digital ghost, financial forensics, and I need to know about the judge." I gave him the name, Judge Miller. "He's presiding over the family court case." Sully went quiet for a moment. "Miller? Rings a bell. Give me 48 hours. Before he hung up, he said, "Be careful, Maya. A revenge story is a messy thing. Don't lose yourself in it." His warning was valid, but it was too late. I had already lost the version of myself who would have backed down. 2 days later, Sully called back. "You hit the jackpot," he said. "Judge Miller has a problem, a big one. He likes to gamble, and he's deep in debt to some very unsavory people." Sully also gave me a name, Leo Chen. "He's the best digital forensic expert I know. A gray hat hacker who owes me a favor. He'll be your ghost." I met Leo in a library basement. He was young, jittery, and brilliant. He looked at my data packet and his eyes lit up. "This is beautiful," he whispered, looking at the plan Caleb and Jessica had laid out. "They've documented their own conspiracy. It's like a confession. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. This was no longer just my fight. I had my team back." The weeks leading up to the court date were the hardest of my life. I was living a double life, a true performance of overcoming adversity. In one life, I was the loving wife. I made Caleb his favorite dinners. I listened to him complain about his stressful work, all while knowing he'd spent his afternoon with Jessica, plotting my demise. I'd smile, nod, and say, "It'll be okay, honey." Every word felt like acid in my mouth. He was so confident, so smug in his belief that I was weak and clueless. He mistook my silence for surrender. That was his biggest mistake. It's one of the most common life lessons. Never underestimate the quiet ones. In my other life, I was a commander directing a silent war. At night, after Caleb fell asleep, I'd slip down to my basement office. It became my war room. Leo fed me a constant stream of information. We uncovered Jessica's deep-seated grudge. Years ago, my firm had beaten hers to a lucrative security contract, a loss that had apparently humiliated her. This wasn't just about Caleb, it was personal for her. It was her own sick revenge story. We found Judge Miller's offshore bank accounts, tracing payments from a shell corporation linked to Jessica's uncle. It was a perfect, self-contained loop of corruption. Leo managed to get access to the courthouse's internal scheduling system and, for a glorious 30-minute window, its security camera network. We didn't touch anything. We just watched. We saw Judge Miller meeting with a known fixer in the parking garage. We had him. We had them all. The evidence was compiled into a secure file, encrypted and backed up across 3 continents. I held the power to detonate their lives with a single keystroke, but I had to wait for the right moment. The waiting was torture. I'd sit across the dinner table from Caleb, looking at the face of the man I once loved, and I would feel this cold, terrifying calm. He had no idea he was a dead man walking. He was about to learn one of the hardest true stories of all. that hell hath no fury like a woman you've pushed too far. The courtroom felt like a theater set for a tragedy. Caleb was dressed in his most expensive suit, radiating a confidence that made my stomach turn. Jessica stood beside him, sharp and sleek in a designer dress, giving me a look that was a mixture of pity and triumph. She thought she had already won. Judge Miller sat on the bench, looking bored and impatient, as if our little domestic drama was beneath him. They were all actors in a play, and they thought I was just a part of the audience. They didn't know I had rewritten the script. This was at the climax of my personal revenge story. Jessica began, her voice smooth and practiced. Your Honor, we are here because of my client's painful decision to leave a marriage plagued by emotional neglect and Miss Evans' increasingly erratic behavior. She droned on, painting me as a paranoid, obsessive woman, even presenting the fraudulent psychological report. Caleb looked at me with a sad, practiced expression. It was a masterpiece of deception. Then Jessica presented their settlement offer. It was brutal. I would lose the house, the company, everything. She slid the papers in front of me. Sign it, Maya, she whispered, leaning in with a smirk. It's the best deal you're going to get. Don't drag this out. I looked down at the paper. Then I looked up, first at her, then at Caleb, then at Judge Miller. And I smiled. A real smile. Is that your final offer? I asked, my voice clear and steady. Jessica blinked, thrown off. Because if it is, I continued, standing up slowly, I'd like to present a counter-offer. No. I nodded to Leo, who was sitting in the back row disguised as a paralegal. Your Honor, before we proceed, I believe some additional evidence is required for context. On cue, the large monitors in the courtroom, intended for displaying evidence, flickered to life. The first image was a high-definition photo of Caleb and Jessica, half-dressed and laughing in a hotel room, champagne in hand. Gasps echoed through the room. Caleb shot to his feet. What is this? But before he could finish, the audio started. It was Jessica's voice purring. He owes me. Once she's gone, the company is ours. Then a new screen lit up Judge Miller's offshore bank statements, with arrows pointing to the deposits from the Shell Corporation. Judge Miller's face went white as a sheet. This wasn't just a hearing anymore. It was an execution, and this inspirational story of a comeback was just getting started. The courtroom erupted into chaos. It was a beautiful, glorious mess. Caleb was stammering, pointing at the screen, his face a mask of disbelief and terror. That's illegal. You can't do that. Jessica wasn't smirking anymore. She was frozen, her face pale, her eyes darting between me, the judge, and the exit. She looked like a cornered animal. This was the raw, unfiltered consequence of their actions, a powerful life lesson playing out for everyone to see. I ignored them both and addressed the bench directly. My voice was calm, almost gentle. Your Honor, I said, I'd like to submit a motion for your immediate recusal due to a clear and documented conflict of interest. I clicked a small remote in my hand. A new file appeared on screen. Time, stamped photos of Judge Miller meeting the fixer in the parking garage. I believe the federal authorities, who have already received a copy of this file, would agree. Judge Miller grabbed his gavel, but his hand was shaking too much to use it. He looked like he couldn't breathe. This court is... He couldn't finish. He looked at me, and for a split second, I saw pure fear in his eyes. He knew he was finished. With a trembling voice, he croaked, I am recusing myself. Court is in recess. He practically fled from the bench. The aftermath was swift. Jessica's phone began ringing, but she just stared at it, muttering about doctored evidence. Caleb stumbled towards me as I packed my briefcase. Maya, please, he begged, his voice cracking. We can talk about this. I looked at him, the man I had shared my bed with. The man who had plotted to destroy me. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt... nothing. There's nothing to talk about, Caleb, I said quietly. You made your choice. This was never just about a divorce. It was about survival. Watching their world crumble wasn't just revenge, It felt like justice. This was one of those true stories where the bad guys actually lose, and seeing it happen was the end of a very dark chapter. This whole ordeal was one of the best revenge stories, not because of the hate, but because of the justice that was finally served. In the months that followed, the dominoes fell, one by one. Judge Miller resigned before he could be formally impeached and is now facing a federal indictment. Jessica Finch was disbarred. Her picture was all over the legal blogs, a cautionary tale of ambition and corruption. Caleb lost everything. The house went into foreclosure, and without my company's assets to leverage, his real estate career imploded. I heard he moved back in with his parents. I didn't feel joy, just a quiet finality. The war was over. This entire saga of family betrayal had reached its conclusion. But as the dust settled, I felt a strange emptiness. I had won. I had protected what was mine. But who was I now? The quiet suburban wife was a role I could no longer play. The vengeful warrior wasn't who I wanted to be forever. Sully called me. "I've got a file for you, Evans," he said. "It's not a contract, it's a choice." He told me about a nonprofit organization that helps people disappear victims of powerful people, witnesses in dangerous cases. They needed someone with my skills to manage their digital security, to build untraceable identities, to be a guardian angel in the machine. It wasn't a return to my old life of shadows, but it wasn't the quiet life I had before either. It was something new, something meaningful. My painful journey had become an inspirational story for myself. It taught me that overcoming adversity isn't about getting back what you lost. It's about becoming someone stronger on the other side. The most important of all life lessons I learned was that my skills weren't a curse from a past life, they were a gift. I could use them to give others the one thing I had to fight so hard for, a second chance. I sold my old company, poured some of the money into the nonprofit, and got to work. My personal revenge story was over, but my new mission had just begun. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace. In the end, I didn't destroy Caleb and Jessica. They destroyed themselves with their own greed and arrogance. I just turned on the lights so everyone could see the monsters they were in the dark. My story is one of those true stories that proves that the deepest betrayals can lead to the greatest transformations. I learned that you can't build a future on a foundation of lies, and that true strength isn't about never getting knocked down, it's about how you get back up, what you choose to fight for, and who you decide to become when the fighting is over. I reclaimed my power, not for revenge, but for a purpose, and that has made all the difference. I sleep soundly at night, knowing that I'm using my skills to protect the vulnerable, not to fight personal wars. Now I want to ask you all, what would you have done in my situation? When you're pushed to the edge by the people you trust the most, do you walk away, or do you fight back with everything you have? Am I wrong for exposing them so publicly, or was it the only way to get justice? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.